Um, my name for many, many years was Shelly Miller. I got married prior to COVID. It's now Shelly Hereford. It's spelled kind of funny, but it's pronounced Hereford. I'm trying to get my husband to drop the E. It's not Hereford, but he's like not going to do that. So just so you know how it's pronounced. I really want to give a huge shout out to you guys that are getting into the business. Mercedes, Tawana, Laquita, Danita, you guys, it's a wonderful business to be involved in. It's got a lot of working parts, and I've been actually in the business since 1985. I started in Atlanta with a mortgage company as a processor because I wanted to buy a house, and I'd been doing food and beverage, bartending, hostessing, waitressing, and I wanted a real job. So I got a job as a processor with a new mortgage company, and 11 years later had my own branch. Worked my way through up the company. Wanted to come back home to have a family, which I did. My family's all from Birmingham, and opened up a satellite branch. And they opened 3 satellite branches up in 94 when I moved here, and closed all 3 months later. We were not competitive in our pricing. And so I was left without a job. And my mother, who is a longtime realtor out of Birmingham, said, "You need to call Billy at Alabama Title and tell him I said to hire you." I didn't even know anything about title. So, long story short, I've been working in the title industry since 1994. I love it. When the market crashed, the title companies were laying us off, and I had to go back and wear a mortgage hat for a little while. Was thankful to have that opportunity and that experience to actually get a paycheck. But market opened back up, and I'm back in title and have been for years now, and like this side of it. First thing I want to tell everybody starting out, your title companies are your best friends, whether you're new to the business, whether you're an investor, or you're a seasoned agent. So whether you use Shelly at Common Bond, you need to be able to pick up the phone and call, build a relationship with that title company, build a relationship with the attorneys. My office is located in Mountain Brook. However, we cover the entire state as far as title searches and closings. We do travel closings. We have a notary service that we hire. We can do closings if a seller lives in Colorado. We can provide that service for the seller to sign in Colorado and still procure the closing with the buyers buying locally. Most of the time, the travel closings, of course, thank goodness we have the technology and the approval from our underwriters to do Zoom closings during COVID. We still have that ability. So if you have somebody a customer that, may not, they don't want to get out, they're disabled, or they're, maybe they're not feeling well, they're worried about COVID testing, or they've, been diagnosed, please remember that is an option. We can do a Zoom closing. But the lender has to approve that. If it's a cash sale, no, don't worry about that. But we do the travel closings throughout the entire state, searches throughout the entire state. One thing I do want to talk about on cash sales, we're only $350 in our attorney fees. And a lot of people say, well, you get what you pay for, or money's not an issue. But sometimes when you're trying really hard to make a deal work and you're sharpening that pencil for that bottom number, call me. That's when you just call me and say, look, I can't make the numbers work. I need your help. And I do have some wiggle room for you new people on attorney fees. Our attorney fees with a mortgage are only $895, and a cash sale is $350. And I can wiggle it a little bit around the search fee. Title companies are mandated by the state as far as your owner's policy. You can't discount that price. Okay. So I answer my phone when y'all work. I answer my texts when y'all work. We send out our closing statements. We send them out via text as well as an email. You'll get a notification. Obviously, they have to go out secure. So you get a notification where to go to open up the encrypted email. And you'll also get a text. So if you're out showing with a customer or whatever, you'll still be able to review that closing statement via your phone, via text. We do monthly educational classes at my office for our staff and for any agents or lenders that might want to increase their knowledge. Welcome to join those. We typically do them the first Monday of every month at 9. But if you want a special workshop, you just have to text me or email me and say, Shelly, I really want a class on 1031 exchanges, bankruptcies, foreclosures, tax deed sales, whatever it is that you're wanting to get more information or more knowledge on. You just have to let me know and we'll set up a private workshop. Or if you have 2 or 3 other people that you'd like to join that class with you, just let me know. Typically, Ben Blackerby is one of my attorneys in the office. I have 3 that does the workshop classes. Other than closings and did travel closings and closings in the office, his main goal is education. So we educate our staff as well as our clients. Let me give y'all, while you have a pen in front of you, hopefully, my email address. Are you ready?
Or you can put it in the chat. That might help. What's it? I can put it in the chat if you tell us what it is.
Well, I'll go ahead and give it out. It's Shelly, Shelley, at commonbondtitle.com.
Okay.
And my personal cell phone, which is my work phone, I work when y'all do, is 205-370-1010. So I think what I want to highlight today is education. And I want you to be able to feel comfortable in calling me with all questions. Setting up workshop meetings with me. We can even meet for lunch, whatever's convenient for you. I do a title 101 class where it just basically, I'll bring you a example of a title commitment that has problems that we have to work through to get it to the table, to kind of educate you on what you need to look for. I don't expect my realtors or investors to go through the title, figure it all out. That's typically what I do. I'll look at it. I'll give you a heads up. It's a red flag. We've got multiple liens. The seller of record is not the same person that's on your contract, but I do want to educate each person that works with me enough to know, exactly what to kind of look at quickly and to give you more knowledge to make you a better person in your role as a realtor or investor. We do a lot of work with investors who are trying to do a tax sale, or they're looking for property that's not necessarily, available or listed in MLS. You can certainly call me or email me and request, look, I want to know who this person is. Has a foreclosure deed been filed? So many things that a title company can do for you to help you grow in your business. Make that phone call. You don't need to spend a whole bunch of time trying to figure stuff out. You got to call your title person. Build that relationship and lean on the title company. We do a lot of work for a lot of investors and our realtors that we don't necessarily invoice for. We hope you come back to us, but I look at it as the cost of doing business. I've got one investor who sent me about 30 properties he wanted to try to buy. And I said, wait a minute, pick your best three. Let me do searches on those three. Because if I spent all day working on maybe properties, then I would bog down the system for if Manisha sent me an order and it's an actual contract and she's going to the closing table, I can't bog down the system so much that I can't get her deal to the table. So pick your best two or three that you really think are good opportunities. Let me run a report for you, do the research for you, and say, okay, this is what you're going to be looking at. The reports don't cost anything for a regular realtor or even an investor. The reports, they may not go back 50 years like our preliminary titles do. Either way, I call it a listing binder or a property report. It's at least going to give you enough information to know if there are any tax liens, state liens, who the owner of the property is, or whatever information you might need to know to move forward to see if it's a viable property for you to spend your time and money on. Okay. Lately, some of the biggest problems we've had are you got to think about the fact that your baby boomers are now in a position where they're older. They're either passing away or they're going into a facility. So a lot of properties are really struggling to get sold because the proper things weren't done as far as having a will, having it clear as to what to do with the property. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done to get it to the table. I think I've had one deal in my entire career that we actually could not get it to the table. We've gone to county jails before to get lost heirs to sign. And even with that, lost heirs, you can do quiet title work on some properties. Costs a little bit more money, but I have really good 2 or 3 attorneys that do good quiet title work here in Birmingham. Sometimes it's just an added expense that you have to kind of know up front. Look, if this is what we have to do to get the property sold, we have to allocate that money to do that work to be able to issue a clear title. And that's something you need to know early, not mid-title, not 2 weeks before closing, because then you've got to know about the money you might have to spend to procure the title, to get a clear title, and the time delay it might take. So that's where your title company comes in, your attorney that you're working with comes in. So my best advice I can give the new folks is start building a relationship with somebody. Hopefully you'll come to me. I hope you do. I'm an open book. If you need a quote, all you got to do is text me the sales price and the county.
And that's what I do.
Yes, that's what you do. I do have a website or a link you can go to and you can get your own quote. With Common Bond Title, because we do things by the book, we have an A+ 5-star rating with 5 different underwriters in the state. What that means is I can shop my rates. Let's just say I have one underwriter that's a little more conservative on a piece of property, and then I have another underwriter that's not so conservative. I might need a little more leeway, a little more, let's just make a common sense decision about this issue. So it allows me to be able to serve my clients better, shopping the price, shopping the decision. We're one of the only companies in the state that have that many multiple underwriters under our belt, right? So keep that in mind. it's been an advantage for me because an investment piece of property, I might need to shop it over to, say, First American, where they're not so strict on their requirements. And if we talk common sense, let's just put our common sense hat on and talk about it, work through it to get it to the table. I've got another underwriter that's a little more conservative, but their pricing's a little bit better. So, not all of my competition can brag about that. I brag about it because I'd rather do it the right way, because at the end of the day, doing it the right way keeps my realtors, my lenders, buyers and sellers out of having to hire an attorney or to go and have to fight something that should have been done right the first time. May not get you a paycheck today if you went to XYZ title company, but it's going to save you money in the long run. And I don't think anybody gets into this business to just get a paycheck. We're in it because our heart wants us to be there. Yes. Do we want to make money? Of course. But you don't want to have to hire an attorney or have a phone call from a seller that's mad at you because there's a problem that's cropped up that somebody didn't take care of at jump. Okay. You investors, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself, having a mortgage banker's background, the title background I have. I got into flipping houses myself. I loved it. It was a lot of fun. My first 3 were just great. I think God blessed me on those first 3. The 4th one I did, I didn't lose money, but I learned a lot from the last one. And so I do have some experience where that's concerned. I'm still going to probably do that in the future, hopefully, but I just decided with the market the way it's turned right now, it would be difficult for me to buy something and make a profit as just a little small town, small time person trying to just buy 1 or 2 or 3 houses a year to flip them. The market's kind of crazy right now, and the values that they're putting on homes right now, I mean, there's just not enough profit margin personally for me. That's not to say it's still not a viable, wonderful market, but you got to be educated. You got to have the tools and the people behind you to make the decisions on moving forward. And I'm going to tell you something, the thing that's going to hurt you the most in the investing side of it is not doing your due diligence up front. Call your title person, call that attorney, do your homework, let that title person work for you to help you know what you're getting into. Even if don't ever think it's a stupid question. There's never a stupid question. What's stupid is not asking the question, right? So again, right now, some of the biggest problems we're having are the properties that are coming out of estates and the work not being done properly prior to the house person passing away or whatever, and the proper work being done on that property to be able to get a clear title and issue an owner's policy.
Shelly,
So,
I have a question for you.
okay.
I think you touch on a lot of things that are, most of our attendees, they're very green, very new to title. I know you talked about titles, you talked about quieting the title, you talked about policies. Can you explain those to them and tell them what that even means?
Absolutely. So I'm just going to talk. When I first got in the business, I didn't understand what a lender policy was, nor an owner's policy. I will tell you this. Having an owner's policy, if you're buying or selling property, is paramount. There is no way that I would ever buy a piece of property as a buyer without an owner's policy. Now, the owner's policy is what the seller typically is obligated through the contract to provide to the buyer. An owner's policy will cover previous liens, previous defects on the property that might come up, and for the most part, future issues that might come up with the property. The prior issues could be anything from a bad deed, a bad conveyance. And what that means is, let's just say John Smith is related to Susan Smith, and Susan is his daughter. He wants to go ahead and give her some property. You're my daughter. I'd like you to have this acreage over here as a gift or an advance inheritance. I'm going to quit claim that to you. Quit claim deeds are not something that title companies typically honor, because it's a limited amount of conveyance and protection. A warranty deed is what you want. Warranty deeds cover the entire, rights, title, and interest to the property. Anytime somebody outside of an attorney or, somebody that's a legitimate closing attorney, when you're talking about conveyances, you really want a legitimate attorney to prepare that document. You have to make sure that the notary is valid, meaning they have to state their name, the date it was signed, the county it was in, has to be stamped. There are a lot of working parts to conveyances on a quitclaim deed and a warranty deed. The quitclaim deed just doesn't transfer all rights, title, and interest. Divorce attorneys will say, just quitclaim deed your interest over. Well, sometimes that causes a problem in title. A warranty deed encompasses everything, all rights and title and interest. So that's just one other thing in the process of having a title that you have to look at. Oh, they quitclaim deeded everything over to, well, there might be issues with that document that we have to fix, which it can be done. You can go back to the original person that prepared that deed to get whatever's missing. Let's just say they don't name the marital status of the parties. That makes it invalid. There's a lot. Again, this is the reason you might want to do a workshop with my office or with me to explain deeds and the different kinds of deeds and how you can fix a deed if it's unwarranted. So I could speak for days about that, but so an owner's policy is what you get when you're buying a piece of property to protect your investment. It can protect it from any problems that might arise from the past or the future. You could have a missing heir pop up and say, wait a minute, nobody told me this is my dad's house. Nobody told me that my sisters who didn't tell me I was over. This is a true story. I'll give you a couple examples. True story that's happened on a property in Helena. You had 2 daughters and a brother. The brother was stationed in Afghanistan. The parents passed away. The 2 sisters sold that piece of property without notifying the brother, who was a legitimate heir. The brother comes back from Afghanistan. They sold the property. They did not get an owner's policy, an owner's title. Brother comes back to mom and dad's house, and somebody else answers the door. So just because you're family doesn't mean you're going to do right by family. The sister sold that property out from underneath the brother, not telling him he was a rightful heir, and he had to go spend a lot of money fighting in court. He was, at the end of the day, he did end up getting the judgment and getting the property given back to him. The people that bought the house were out all of their money, and a lawsuit is now pending with the 2 sisters.
Oh my God.
True story.
So the buyer did not do the title search before the buyer bought it.
They did not get an owner's policy. So the buyer was not protected. Because if they had done the title search, the title company would have said, okay, sister one, sister two, and brother's in Afghanistan, he's going to have to sign, which we do that all the time. Y'all don't realize this, but we contact the embassy where he's stationed and we get the document signed. He's a legitimate heir. He should have signed and been a party to the selling of that property. So that's an example of what can happen if you don't get an owner's policy. The buyers have nothing. They lost everything, the entire investment. Now, it's my understanding they're going back and suing the sisters, but still, they're out the money and they had to get out of the house. The brother won that case. If you want to hear another quick example, a gentleman. Now, we did a witness closing on this one. This is another warning to the new guys. When you have somebody that you're working with and they want to use an out-of-state title company, beware. So we had this is a property that was bought in foreclosure. The gentleman and his wife, she was elderly. This was going to be their forever home. And they went in and bought the property out of foreclosure. The seller insisted they use an out-of-state title company, but they had to have a Birmingham attorney witness the documents, the signing of the documents. Well, we do that all the time. So he buys the house. He goes to the courthouse to file homestead. And the clerk said, sorry, Mr. Brown, you don't own this property. He said, what do you mean? I have a deed. She goes, yeah, but a tax deed was filed between the time he bought it and filed his homestead. So somebody had went in and bought it in a tax sale. So he technically did not own that property. But because he did get an owner's policy, he came back to us. We just witnessed the signing of the documents. And he came back to us. He was in tears. What do I do? And we didn't have to help him. We just, it was in good faith. We helped the gentleman and ended up, getting everything worked out. The title company would not return his phone calls, his emails, his letters. We got involved. We found out who their underwriter was, went to their underwriter, who we happen to know personally, got it resolved. They had to step up to the plate to the tune of about $45,000. But the man is in his home. He no longer has to worry about it. So I know that sometimes investors, I've dealt with them a million times, they do have their own title companies and they write that in. We have to use our title company. I just think everything's negotiable. If you're forced to use another title company, just do your due diligence. If you have questions, if things start looking funny or you're not getting, something doesn't feel right, if you're representing the buyer, don't hesitate to call me. But, communicate with them, get names, get people that are responsible and reliable. Make sure that you review the title that they send you. Make sure you get a copy of that title and you look at it closely. Because if you're representing the buyer or you're the buyer of that property as an investor, do your homework. Okay. If it's a cash sale, you really don't have a whole lot of leeway. Typically in Birmingham, the seller will typically pay for title and attorney on a cash sale. But like I said, everything's negotiable. right? The seller typically, I don't think they really care. It's just what's written into most of your standard contracts. You can always scratch it out and change it. To those of you that are new, be sure you're aware of your rules and regulations regarding RESPA. Can y'all hear me still?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. I had a call coming in. I want to make sure. You new people, make sure you go by your RESPA. Look up RESPA. And if you need help with that, I'll be happy to send you links. With us having the going from, we have a new president. The Democrat president has pretty much, they're more about the government kind of dictating, controlling what we do in a real estate type industry. And what that means is, I'm not saying I'm Republican or Democrat. I'm not saying that. But prior to when Obama was in office, he started the CFPB. I think it was a necessary thing because there was a lot of abuse with consumers, with either in the industry. So they created the CFPB, Consumer Financial Protection Agency, and that was to protect consumers. They were coming back saying, nobody explained this to me. So he created the CFPB, and they created all these laws, regulations that we have to follow as people in the industry. I want y'all to, when you're in class looking at that, be sure you understand that, because the consumers are protected in their investments and what they're doing, because they felt like they were taken advantage of. So there's certain things you can do, like if you're just as a realtor, if you're representing a buyer and the buyer's paying all your title and closing, which is really what's kind of going on in our market right now with the way the industry is. 2 years ago, Manisha can tell you that it was typical for a buyer and seller to split title and closing. Now, with the low inventory, sellers pretty much, you better come to me with a clean offer. And I'm going to ask top price for my property. Well, that's just the way the market is. If a buyer's paying $1 towards title, the buyer, by law, should be able to choose who the title company is. Most buyers don't care, don't know, but as their agent representing that buyer, you need to be aware that if one day, if this listing agent says, no, I use Shelley and I've already done a preliminary title on it, title's going back to Shelley at Common Bond. Well, that's great. I do a preliminary title for free, hoping you will come back to me at point of sale. But at the end of the day, if that consumer gets more educated and realizes that, wait a minute, I could have chosen my agent, and I could have chosen what title company my transaction took place in. Nobody told me that. And now I can read online that if I go back and sue people, I can get back all my closing costs. I think it's up to 6% now, guys. So if I've just decided if I figure out a way, there's some people that if they figure out a way where they can sue somebody, there are sue happy people. So as an agent, just be educated on that. You can say, look, Mr. Buyer, you're paying all the title. By law, you get to choose. I know you probably don't. Do you have a friend with a title company? If you don't, I have a couple that I trust. And you really get to choose. And typically they'll say, I don't care, or, well, I want to use who you trust. But you want to have that conversation, because they're going to start reinforcing the RESPA Act. And And they're going to go after people that violate that. And the consumer is way smarter than they were 6 or 10 years ago because of the internet and the access to the information. It's a difficult road to go down because you don't want to get into a, who wants to lose a deal over title? I don't, but you just need to be aware. So when you're going through your classes, just make special note of that. Be aware of it. Most of the time, the buyer doesn't care, but you need to be able to say, I did tell my buyer that, because he's paying $1 towards title, he does have legally the right to choose what title company he procures his title with. Does that make sense, y'all? Y'all following me?
Yeah, we do.
Okay.
We do.
It's like a necessary evil. Basically, you have to do this. You're legally required to tell the consumer this because of the statute. And even though it might be a very negligible amount, it's still regulatory. You go by the book, basically, like you said before.
I mean, what you want to happen, look, I'm married to a realtor, and he tries to send me, obviously, everything he can, right? Which is great. But I never will allow him to push or, somebody to the point where they feel obligated. I want the people that he works with to understand they have the right to choose if they're paying any monies toward the title. And it's typically they say, John, I don't care. I really don't know anybody. Go, if your wife works at Common Bond, she's going to babysit that loan, obviously, and that title. So that's fine. But what you don't want to happen is that consumer coming up later on down the road saying, Mr. Agent, you never told me. And now I can get up to 6%. I can get all my closing costs, all my title costs reimbursed to me. And then an additional, I want to say it's 3 or 6%. So that's just easy money. I mean, all he has to do is go on the CFPB website, report it, and then all parties to the transaction are then liable. You're all party to it. It's going to be the agents, the lender. Who wants to have that to deal with? So it's not a deal breaker. What I've seen lately, though, is Birmingham's just a different little bubble. I mean, my mother being a realtor here for almost 50 years, she was like, it's my listing and I'm ordering the title. I don't care what anybody says. Well, then when TRID happened, the laws changed. There are still people that are just stuck in this mindset that as the listing agent, I'm controlling everything. Well, that's great. If the seller's paying all the title, okay, you can. I just think it's an important conversation to have. I mean, I've lost a ton of business just because I've been screaming this into my husband's head about, you have to let them know they do have a right to choose. I mean, even an owner's policy, if you look at the closing settlement statements, y'all, it's an optional fee. In my opinion, it's not optional. Would you think a survey on a piece of property that's been passed down through families or generations, do you not think that a survey is very important to get? I mean, I think it's...
Yes.
Okay. So, but it's all about educating yourself so that you have a conversation, or if you have a question asked to you by an investor, whoever your client is, you want to at least have an answer. If you don't have an answer, you say, I've got a title person, I can get it on the phone right now. But those are some of the things that are starting to come up that I'm getting wind of. As a title rep, I used to bring closing presents to